are listening to Pause. We pause for a second or two. This is episode 53, Studying History. Right now, many parallel events are unfolding, and it is easy to feel confused. It is difficult to feel on top of things. All these parallel things happening can feel quite chaotic. They sometimes feel related to each other, and at other times they feel quite separated from each other. So all of us are, for the moment, stuck in this sort of very uncomfortable position where we feel like we know things, but there is so much more we do not know. That is the feeling. Today's episode is called Studying History. And emotionally, we will relate this topic to our universal skill called patterns. The idea behind universal skill patterns is that everything grows and everything changes due to these naturally occurring patterns. There are books written on the topic, and I highly advise that you do some reading on natural patterns. They include, for example, some natural patterns might be waves, spots, symmetries, cracks, crystal formations, fractal repetition, turbulences, spirals, to name a few. And basically, we, people, in these times, we are sort of thrown here and there between all these patterns. And these patterns, they are natural, and they are what they are because they have to be what they are, but that doesn't make them less uncomfortable for us to be in. They truly are very uncomfortable at the moment. studying history. As we read about a subject, we read about it because something about it catches our curiosity. There is something about the subject that appeals to us on quite a deep level. Often we do not know why we are curious about something. We just are. And then we start picking up some different accounts on the subject. We start reading some different perspectives. We listen to different persons' view on the subject. And each person whose account we look up, each person has been drawn to the subject in an equal way as us. Something about the subject has made the person feel that there is something here that I want to look into. So you and the person you are reading for the moment, the source you are looking up, you are sort of sharing the same pattern. You're in the same pattern, moving towards something together. And then, as you read this first piece of information, maybe at some point you feel that you want to add another piece. And so you go to another source and you put yourself into their shoes. And you keep doing this. You keep adding different points of view, different sources. And then you can sort of feel this sort of pattern emerging. So you have the subject in question, and then you have all these different sources. And you all share this natural curiosity about the subject. You're all studying the same subject, but from somewhat different vantage points. But you are all part of this same pattern. And after a while, what maybe started out quite mysterious and uncomfortable can after a while start feeling just interesting. Universal skill patterns is a lot about this. that all the time, at every moment, we are in real time part of all these natural patterns going on all at the same time. And everything is constantly moving. Every pattern is constantly morphing or becoming more defined. And once we start to get this sort of intuitive sense that we are part of natural patterns, then the studying of history, as well as our just day-to-day experience about living our life, can feel more interesting. And this interesting feeling is very constructive to carry with us in turbulent times such as these. I want to dedicate this last part of today's episode to talking about a specific aspect of studying history. And that is a subject that I find very interesting, and that is to study what seems to be constant in our human predicament, regardless of what time we live in, and regardless of what technology we are using. Personally, I am a big fan of coherence. I want to have this sort of coherent feeling in my life, that who I was as a kid and who I was growing up and who I was becoming an adult and who I was a couple of years ago and who I am today and who I will be in the future. I'd like there to be this sort of coherent feeling all this time. Far from a straight line. Very going here and there. Very different experiences, yes. But still this sort of deeper, coherent feeling. Almost like an essence, but not really. And as I am studying history, as I am reading someone's account on something, on a subject I find interesting, I also enjoy viewing that person's account as sort of also carrying the same sort of coherence to it. That, yes, I personally have this sort of coherence to my life, who I was as a kid up until now and into the future, but also that you and me, this third person, this account of history, this fourth person, fifth, sixth, that all our experiences, that the emotional undertone to all of this, that there is this shared sort of experience to it all. We are all part of the same patterns, the same natural patterns, and that the sheer experience of these patterns in themselves is shared, regardless of vantage point. Like, we are different players in a soccer game, but we are all playing the same match. That sort of shared experience. And not shared experience in this sort of retouched manner. Not at all. Not this kumbaya feeling. Not at all. It can be quite bleak. It can be quite dark or depressing often. But it still feels like a shared experience. It feels truthful. And it does not feel like we are alone. It is very easy to feel alone, and especially when there is a lot of confusion going around, when there is a lot of conflict going around. But even conflict, even confusion, follows natural patterns. And people will always be confused. And there will always be conflict. And a cool thing about sort of connecting to this sort of coherence, as I call it, this sort of shared human experience, is that once we sort of click in to that sort of shared experience, then we will open up to different perspectives. And our sense of history and our life being interesting increases. So we're not doing it to be good people. We are not doing it to get along necessarily. Conflict is conflict. And conflict is real. But we are doing it to enrich our lives. To feel that life is interesting. And in doing so, other people will see that life is possible to make interesting. And that is very important in such uncomfortable times, such as these. That's it for today. Thank you.